Hey there, Alex Kidman here. Today taking a look at this, the Hubbl Set Top Box from Foxtel. Well, sort of from Foxtel, sort of from Hubbl. It's a long and complicated story, but this is their latest play for the streaming market. It's got a couple of interesting integrated search ideas in there and some interesting pricing as well. There are some details of it that I really, really like, and there are some things where I think for a certain type of user, for a certain type of TV viewer, I should say, then this could actually be a smart choice, but it's a limited set of those users. And at launch, this isn't quite what it should be, or at least it isn't quite what Hubbl had promised it would be. Could improve down the track. At launch, if you only live in that streaming world, it's a little bit hard to justify. If you split your time between streaming and broadcast, it's maybe a little bit more of a sensible option. But I'm going to flick this over to a nearby TV to show you what the interface looks like. Bear with me for just 1 second. So here's the basic UI in action. And look, it's a carousel style. It's very similar to just about any other streaming box you may have played with. It's sometimes not the most responsive, but I'll get into the UI in a little bit, actually, because what I want to highlight first is the setup routine. So on the plus side, and kind of surprisingly, given this is basically a Foxtel product, you don't require any kind of ongoing Foxtel or Binge or KO subscription. They'd love you to have one, of course, but it's not actually necessary. You just need what they call a Hubbl account. It's basically a sign-up email account. You've probably got a million of them. Quick reminder here, have a unique password for each and every single one of them. But I did want to highlight one thing, and to do that, I've got to go all the way down to settings. Here we are. And network. Here we are in the network settings. And the whole thing with the Hubbl box is it's a super controlled environment. So where for a bunch of other boxes, you might under network settings see a whole bunch of different Wi-Fi networks. If it knows that it's connected to its right network, that's all it's going to see. It's not going to offer you the option to switch to others unless you reset that connection. So let's do that. And this is not a fast process, I should point out, which is kind of the story of Hubbl, actually. It's one of the bigger problems I have with it is that its general performance is not great. Now, my network server is good. I don't actually really need to do this, but I want to do this to show off one of the UI pieces that's just insane to me. So now it will actually search for local Wi-Fi networks in my area, and people who know me will know that Mini Godzilla is going to be my Wi-Fi network. Can you see what the problem is? Literally, the way this thing wants me to input my password is with an up-down letter chooser. Not a full on-screen keyboard, an up-down letter chooser, and there's no other way to do it. This is awful UI. Whoever chose this, and I'm going to choose my words carefully here, needs to be fired into the sun. This is such a bad way to do passwords. It's so bloody difficult. It's awful. Please, please fix this because it's just the worst. If you'll excuse me, I've now got to reconnect to my Wi-Fi. I'll be back in a second. Okay, and we're back, and God, that was painful. So much clicking, so much tapping. Such an awful experience. Now, to be fair, when I first set the Hubbl set-top box up, I actually had an Ethernet connection running out of the back. I figured that would be quicker for setup. And of course there it just went, yep, cool, internet is here, and I'm off and away. I would seriously suggest if you're going to do this, use Ethernet, because damn, but that Wi-Fi setup is obtuse. Now, the big thing about Hubbl is that it's meant to bring searchability across both free-to-air TV and streaming platforms in a way that nearly everyone says they do and nearly everyone does fairly badly. So how does Hubbl compare at that level? Well, look, actually, it's okay on the main except when it falls over. And when it falls over, it tends to crash falling over. So I'll give you a little example here. I'm going to press the microphone button on the remote, which lets you do voice searches. And voice is one of those things where often Australian accents are a big problem. And obviously the Hubbl being an Australian produced box, sort of, I mean, it's basically a Comcast/Sky equivalent box, all the same parent company in this case. But voice is one of those things that often just doesn't work for me. So let's try something that I actually would want to watch. WrestleMania. And there we go. It's found it. It's found it on Binge. It's found a few YouTube results for me as well. That's actually kind of cool. That works quite well when it works. Search is great when it works, but when it doesn't, it's a bit of a pain. And that's whether you're using voice or, in fact, if you're using just regular text entry search. You get a proper keyboard for that one, by the way. Now, the issue here is that sometimes it just doesn't find things. So I'll try this here. I've had really weird, inconsistent results with trying to find Bake Off, as in like the Great British Bake Off. And you would think, right, if I search Bake Off, and it's already finding one thing there, and in fact it's found all of them. But one of the times when my better half was searching for Bake Off and ran this exact search, it came up saying, I can't find anything like that. And here's the crazy thing, the vast majority of these results are all sitting on Binge. This is literally metadata that Binge controls, and it couldn't find it. And I've had more than just Bake Off do that. On and off, it just seems to decide, no, I'm not finding that thing. I don't know if that's an internet connection, I don't know if it's its database, but it's a big problem for a box like this that prides itself on that kind of searchability. The other idea with Hubbl is that it's meant to surface content that might be of interest to you and build a profile over time. Now, I've only been testing this for a week, but so far, I'm not super sold. I mean, look, I never want to watch Australian Idol. Maybe you're different, but I never... God, that's a terrible Photoshop cut out of, what's his name, Carl Sandlin's. But I digress. I never want to watch it. So why is it showing it to me? I can't actually tell it, by the way, hey, I don't want to watch these things. It's just going to have to wait and learn the things that I do want to watch. But until then, I'm just stuck with them. It will, as you can see, also show you stuff from the free-to-air catch-up channels, but it'll also show you actual free-to-air content. And this is meant to be one of its big selling points. Now, to be clear, this particular box, for filming purposes, is not connected to an external antenna. That's in a different room where it's much more difficult for me to film right now. But this stuff works, but again, there's some weird little catches. So, for example, this thing does have an EPG, so an electronic program guide, but if I pop the remote in front of there, one thing you will not see is an EPG button. And that's just bizarre when you consider that like smart TVs have that, some competing streaming boxes have that. Hubbl box, no dedicated EPG button. If you want to find the EPG, you actually have to scroll down until you get to the point where it says, hey, TV guide, and then you can see the EPG. And it's going to give me a slightly limited kind of thing here because, again, no antenna hooked in at this time. Free-to-air watching is okay. You get a slightly limited subset of what you can do, and it is a little slow flicking between channels if you're a habitual channel surfing kind of person who jumps between lots and lots of things. But this functions, and it does give it a slight edge against something like a Chromecast or a Fire TV because those don't have antenna inputs. Our closest alternative in that space is going to be something like the Fire TV, not the Fire TV Mini, the Fetch TV Mini. I'm speaking too fast again. The Fetch TV Mini is more expensive than this and actually a little bit more limited in terms of apps. Now, this gets me onto apps because the Hubbl App Store is an interesting one. You look at this and you think, oh, cool, there's an app store, I can install stuff. No, can't install anything. It's all installed for you. So the apps that we see here at launch, this is all it's got. Everything. Every single app is already installed. Any new apps when they come along, and at launch, they've said that they're going to do Optus Sport and Stan and Paramount Plus. They are not here yet. It's not really clear when they will be, just that they will be. And this to me is problematic. And the reason it's problematic, look, you've got your heavy hitters here, no doubt. You've got Netflix. There's even a Netflix button on the remote. You've got Prime Video. You've got Apple TV. You've got Disney Plus. You will theoretically get Stan at some point in the future. But there's a bunch of other players you don't have. You don't have BritBox. You don't have Shudder. For my purposes, it doesn't have Triller. There's other things. There's other smaller players, and there's players that are perhaps for non-English speaking language markets and things like that. They're not here. That's not really clear if they ever will be here, but they are on competing boxes. So 6 one half does the other. I suppose if you don't like installing apps, if you don't like having to look up apps, if you want that controlled experience, great. This will do it just fine for you. But if you want to install other apps or if you want to do other things, if it's not here, tough luck. It's just not here. Now, apps are not really the 100% story of this device either. because the whole idea is more that they think you want to search for a particular program or an actor or what have you. And look, that somewhat functions, I've already shown you. But what's odd here is when you do go into some apps, the interfaces, look, they're all right, they function, I suppose, but maybe not as well as they could, even for things that Hubbl controls. So, for example, Binge. Binge does not show me some things that I have watched on Binge on other platforms, even if across different non-Hubbl devices, it tracks that considerably better. It's a weird little omission. Now, there's another area here, and I've got to give full credit to Chris Stead for this one. I'm not a sports guy. I don't watch a whole bunch of sports. I don't watch a whole bunch of KO sports. But as per his review, which I will link to here, if you are watching stuff on KO Sports through Hubbl, you're getting a worse experience. There's no 4-in-1 viewing experience, which has been part of KO Sports since day dot. But more critically, if you're watching a previous match, so something that's already concluded, not live sport, but prior sport, on other devices through KO Sports, when you come to the ads, you can at least fast forward through them. You can skip through them. They're part of it because they were part of the original broadcast. Okay, but they've said, cool, we've made our money off those. You can skip through these because you're watching an older thing. On the Hubbl, on the other hand, you can't. You're actually stuck watching them. So the experience here on a device they control, for a service they control, is a whole lot worse as per his report. That's just weird. I mean, maybe they'll fix that up later on, but at launch, it's not super, super promising. Then there's account stacking. Now, this is an interesting idea. This is something I think that actually has a lot of theoretical merit. I'm going to say theoretical there, and I'll explain why in a second. So, if you transfer your billing for streaming apps through to Hubbl, so you just get a Hubbl bill for these things, then they'll give you a discount. The more you stack there, the more you save. So, for 3 apps, you get $5 credit a month, 4 apps, 10, 5 apps, 15. Now, that's not a bad thing in these constrained times. We could all use a little bit more money back in our pockets. The issue here, though, is unless you're really into Hubbl's services, so your KOs, your Binges, the new Lifestyle channel or Flash, there's not a lot else to pick from. Because basically it's KO, Binge, Netflix, Lifestyle, Flash, and Disney+. And that's it. And now, again, I suppose that can change down the track. They have said they're going to try and bring other partners on board. But the thing here is, if you only subscribe, for example, for Netflix and Disney, there's no discount for you at all. And the big players in the Hubbl world, without a shadow of a doubt, are going to be KO Sports for most people. Not me, granted, but a lot of people love KO Sports. And Binge, much less Lifestyle, it's a lot newer. Much less Flash, it's news specific. And yeah, there's a market for that, obviously, but it's a much smaller market. I just can't see that many people getting up to the 5-app level. Even 3 apps might be a bit of a stretch for some people. And it really only works if you're happy both billing through Hubbl, but also staying with Hubbl. My standard advice on these kinds of things is always not to stay subscribed to everything all of the time, but bounce between subscriptions, because that way you can get the most value. You have Disney Plus for a month, you bounce off it, you bounce onto Netflix. You go from that to Stan, you go from that to Netflix, whatever suits your mood or whatever content they've got. That works quite well in terms of saving you the most money. This really only works if you're happy spending all of that money all the time. As such, the savings might not be there. You absolutely do have to compare that for your own circumstances, however. Is the Hubbl box a good buy? Look, at $99 outright, and there's no other contractual obligation there, it's not bad. It's 4K capable, the search is an interesting thing, and the integration with broadcast TV is, I think, critical here. If you live equally in the worlds of watching a lot of broadcast free-to-air TV and a lot of streaming, then this could be a solid enough kind of option. However, if you don't, it just doesn't stack up. It does not compare well against the likes of a cheaper Google Chromecast with Google TV or a Fire TV stick. And there's a few too many other little quirks in the UI which are annoying. I mean, the Wi-Fi thing, yeah, obviously it annoys me a lot because it's bad UI design. But you really, for most people, you're only going to have to click through that once. The intermittent search stuff and some of the weirdness around KO Sports and the way it does Binge, hopefully they'll fix that up. But as always, I can only really review these things as they are at the time that I'm reviewing them. Saying, oh, well, I hope it gets better, therefore buy it, is bad advice. This is absolutely well suited for that niche of people who want that mix of broadcast and streaming TV. Otherwise, look elsewhere. Anyway, that's my take on the Hubbl TV Set Top Box. Have you got one? What do you think? Anything you'd like to know before you buy one? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe.